Frozen, a movie produced by Walt Disney Studios and released on November 19th of 2013, is a movie beloved by many across the globe. It's captured the hearts and minds of children with its intriguing and inspiring tale of two sisters, one named Elsa, who has the power to manipulate and create snow and ice, and the other named Anna, who has the power to fall in love with any man she lays her eyes on. These two magical abilities ultimately conflict with one another, leading Elsa to confine herself to the Misty Mountains and Anna to chase after her to return her to her rightful place on the Arendelian throne. But this conflict is not the main point of what we will be discussing here today. Oh no, sir, no. Today, we will be looking at one tiny specific detail that makes the future of Frozen all the more precarious. This little detail being that one particular scene where we see the main antagonist, just after meeting with Anna, do this. What is that? What is that? In case you didn't know already, spoiler alert, skip to the end of the video now, you have been warned. Hans is going to betray Anna and try to kill her later on so he can become king. And since that is the case, there is 100% no grounds for why he smiles like that. If Hans is going to turn out to be the bad guy at the end of the movie, then there should be no reason for why Disney would put this scene in the movie. That being said, I often hear many on the opposite side proclaiming it was indeed a fair move for Disney to do, which is something that I, frankly, have a hard time fathoming. But in order to allow you, the audience, to have a clear understanding of this controversial subject, I have decided to go out of my way to address them for you. There are two reasons that many of my opponents like to use in favor of making the argument that it is fair game for Disney to treat Hans like this, even though he's a bad guy. The first is that Hans was faking the smile, and the second is that his smile was real. It was just Hans' way of expressing his happiness at the thought of murdering Elsa and Anna, or something along those lines. These, of course, are complete idiocracy. To address the first, there's no one there to fake out. You see anyone there? Is there anybody that Hans is putting on a face for there? I mean, I don't know, maybe Nemo made a cameo, so he had to. Of course not. The answer is no, supremely no, very much no. There is no one there, so there is nobody to fool with his smiling. And don't even think about saying he was faking out the audience, because that would be illegal. You actually get a fine of $100 million for doing that, so that doesn't count. The reason for that hefty price is that movies, or just stories in general, can't have characters acting a certain way in order to just trick the audience. Unless they later address doing something like that by having the character clearly show the audience he broke the fourth wall, then you can't say the character was trying to fool the audience. And that's where their second point comes into play to say, hey, you know what, maybe that's just his way of reacting to something he doesn't like. But luckily we know that is not the case with Hans via Exhibit B. Here we see Hans clearly looking how we imagine most evil people would look when they are behaving maliciously. If he had a disorder of some kind that happened to make him look like the kind of guy that a father would be willing to send his daughter out to prom with whenever he was plotting nefariously against you, it would be obviously present here. But in this scene we can blatantly observe that this is not the face of a nice guy, this is the face of a mean guy. Oh yeah, Hans looks the way every bad guy looks when he's acting evilly, and if that is the case, then this moment when we see Hans giving us that golden gleam is in fact a tried and true 24-karat genuine smile of love and compassion, which would imply that Disney fraudulently tricked their audience into believing Hans was a hero. These were all thoughts I was having while I was taking a shower and pondering to myself this seemingly dumbfounding mistake made by Disney. But about halfway through the arduous process of cleaning myself, an idea popped into my head. What if Hans really wasn't faking the smile like Disney would have you think to believe? Hear me out. Disney, throughout these past 20 years or so, has taken a very strong liking to making most of their villains be twist villains. If you were to pick a random Disney flick within that time frame, the odds of you picking a Disney film where a good guy turned out to be the villain are approximately 6 and 7. 28 and 13 if we're not counting Tinkerbell. This overused plot device is one that I presume Disney is beginning to get tired of using. If you put these kinds of twists in every single one of your movies, the audience starts to expect it, and that ultimately ruins the point of inserting the twist into the movie itself. Disney, presumably having realized this flaw in their movies, decided to add a twist to this twist. What if, hear me out, Hans, hear me out, was actually a good guy, pretending to be a bad guy, pretending to be a good guy? Now this is a very fair bit of speculation, but based on my keen detective skills, I have deduced that this is the most probable reason Disney decided to include this scene in Frozen. There is no possible scenario where Hans turns out to be a full-blown mad guy. We've already taken down the major points in favor of that idea, those being that he's faking the smile and that he's expressing his happiness simply in an evil way. Do this. I've inductively reasoned that Hans is actually a good guy and not a bad guy because his smile is in fact genuine. But Dan, the review man, you say. At this point, you're just picking and choosing whether Hans is really a good guy or not. How can you tell Hans' nice-looking smile to himself is more genuine than his maniacal smile to Anna? But oh ho ho, my dear young pupil, the answer, you see, is in the question itself. Hans smiling to himself is enough to prove that he was being genuinely good, but when we go over to his maniacal look, is he looking maniacal to himself? The answer is no. He is looking maniacal in front of Anna. If he were indeed maniacally smiling to himself, then there would be a real predicament and we would be odds with it trying to figure out what personality of Hans to believe. But Hans is not by himself. He is looking straight at Anna, and if he really was genuinely thinking happy thoughts back in this smiley scene, then that must mean he's faking in front of Anna. It's the tiniest, most insignificant little details that tend to be overlooked the most in these films, and had we not realized the importance of Hans acting maniacal in front of Anna, I would be as lost as all the other mindless viewers out there. But Disney, those clever little Disney people, they knew they had to provide some sort of way, albeit very subtle, to be able to legitimately make this twist, so that the audience could not complain when the time came around for Hans to show his true heroic colors. So there you have it. There are indeed a great deal more rabbit holes to go down from here, like why Hans was pretending to be bad, what does this mean for the next film, but for now, I think it's best if we end the conspiracies here. I thank you for joining me on this ride, and until next time, I bid you adieu. But before my final send-off, I'd just like to give a few shoutouts to the Lopez family for requesting a Frozen-themed video, as well as a shoutout to my good friend Nina for requesting a shoutout in my next video, which turned out to be this one. So, there you go. Yeah, you have been watching Dan, the Review Man's show. If you thought this was good, maybe come back tomorrow. If you want, maybe comment, like, and subscribe. If you do, hey, I'll give you an air high five.